Hola, estamos en la Ciudad de México hoy. So today I'm alone in Mexico City. Currently I'm in Lago de Chapultepec, which is the lake at this really huge park. So as I've traveled around, I realize I have a dichotomy of how I unintentionally categorize places, and it's pretty reductive, but it kind of makes sense because I like to categorize things in different ways to sort of compare them and contrast them. So my three very reductive categories are European, American, and India. The reason I have those three is that those are the places I've been to. I've never been outside of those three places, except now I'm in Ciudad de Mexico. So finally I am leaving those three places. To fall into one of those three categories, you don't have to be from either of those places. For me, London counts as American because they speak English, because it's so similar to New York, and that's where I'm coming from, so that's where my perspective is going to be from. And believe it or not, parts of Los Angeles fall in the India-esque category. It's because of the type of architecture there. There's like the kind of buildings made of the material that only warm places have, like cementy vibe, colorful buildings. It's these kind of buildings that remind me of Los Angeles, but when you zoom in on the sign, it's like very European, the way the signs are written. Los Angeles is dry and hot, which reminds me of India. And India has a really diverse landscape as well, so it's not like these categories are only for one type of place or the other. I'm interested to see which category it's going to fall into because in a lot of ways, I feel like Mexico would be like India. These are sort of like places that have been colonized. They have a history of mixing with another country that is really, really different. And at the same time, it's also very warm here. The vegetation is so full, even though we're in a city. The food reminds me of Indian food. Like there was a mungfali ki chikki here, which I didn't know is a Mexican thing. I don't know what it's called in Spanish, but it's like something with aguacates, and they're so good and I love it, so I'll probably get it at one point or another here. And there's also like the sesame seed, like rabri, that thing here. And I feel like the way the vendors on the street sell food reminds me of places in India, but at the same time it's giving me Los Angeles because there's a lot of Mexican influence in Los Angeles. But weirdly, like there was this one building that reminded me of Slovakia. That's not a sentence I ever thought I would say. I do have a feeling that if there's any part that's really dense and super urbanized, it's gonna remind me of Mumbai. And maybe parts of the US, who knows? Although I've gone on some solo trips here and there, I haven't gone on any solo trip when I already wasn't in Europe or in the US. And when I went to Spain from the US, I was there to study abroad. I wasn't really on like exactly a trip. Although I definitely explored on my own, it wasn't like that the whole time. This trip is definitely different because like I'm here to explore, to have fun, and I'm doing it alone. At least for the first day, and then my friend will come tonight. It definitely has more of a weight when you travel internationally from the US rather than like when I was already in Europe. When I was in Prague, I went to London by myself and I was there for a long time by myself, but I was already in Europe and the travel itself isn't that much even though you're leaving the EU and entering the UK. Similar, like when I went to Spain, I was coming from Prague, and when I went to Amsterdam, I was coming from Spain. So like it didn't feel as monumental as it does to go to Mexico. It was a really long journey to come here. And I came from the US. Even though I've only been here for like 16 hours, something I've noticed is that the locals don't try to immediately speak English with me. And I find that really interesting because they hear my accent. Like, I don't have a great accent, and I don't speak like super Mexican Spanish either, because in school they teach you Castilian Spanish. I can understand them really well. That's the thing I really like about Mexican Spanish. I feel like I can understand it super well in comparison to other countries and other places. I remember when I was in Barcelona, for example, they would just be like, do you speak English? Because that would just be easier. And I totally get that. But it was interesting, in Madrid, they would just continue speaking Spanish with me. In Santiago, same thing. And then whenever I'm in India, no one tries to speak English with me unless they just approach me randomly, like a person on the street, not like a vendor I'm already talking to. It's like someone who approaches me first. Sometimes they try to speak English with me, but I will just like switch to Hindi when I can. My plan is to paint. I ate at a really great Mexican vegan place this morning. I'll be exploring the park, looking for a spot to paint now. Let's go. Look how beautiful it is here. This park is amazing. It's not even like that crowded. It's a Thursday, so that might explain it, but I feel like when there's weather like this in New York, everybody and their dog and their dog's friend is outside. I'm staying in Roma Norte. I feel like it's a very stereotypical place for Americans and tourists to stay. It's super beautiful though, so I'm glad I did choose it. I arrived yesterday and my friend is going to be arriving later tonight to meet me, but until then I have some time alone. I'm going to try to find a place to sit and paint today, which would be fun. There's like little sort of island type of things or peninsulas here, so you can go onto them. I'm gonna try to go onto one of those and paint, have my little moment, my little artist moment. There's also like some geese, so that's pretty funny. I don't know, I find them to be very funny animals. I'm feeling lonely. Oh, that's a black and white geese right there.
Was something I forgot were real. A little view of the past. I promise all of this is not gonna last. Trust me, I know.
I really want to paint this, but it's gonna be so hard. Let's see. This is my travel gouache. I put a little gum arabic in it to make it softer, and I don't have a water vessel, so I'm just gonna put it in here. I think I'd like to paint this view I have here of a bridge. This is a sort of like a travel watercolor sketchbook thing. Let's get painting. First, I'm gonna sketch it out actually. So here I am in Bosque de, oh my god, I don't know the name of this park. Here I am in Bosque de Chapultepec. You know, I'm working on, the thing is I really enjoy doing these en plein air pieces, which means like outside. But what I don't enjoy is how they look at the end, and I've been here and there like practicing a little bit because I want my pieces to like look better over time. The only way to get better is by practicing. But also, like, you have to come to terms with how art isn't always gonna look how you think it will look. It's not always gonna look good, and it's also, mainly for me, it's about enjoying myself, having fun, and while I'm alone, my favorite pastime is to do something creative, whether that's reading, writing, editing, filming, painting, going to museums, or just really like fulfilling that creative desire in me in some form or another, whether it's consuming something with a lot of intention or it's just doing something where I get to create something. And before that would even be like sewing, knitting, crocheting, but lately it hasn't been those things as much. I have been crocheting a little bit more, and I made this top. I left at my friend's place, which is the reason why it's not here. Otherwise I would have loved to like wear my own clothes that I made, and I mostly create clothes that are meant for like hot weather. I think it's just important to know like this piece is probably not going to be that great, but what it is doing is it's like documenting the moment for me, and that's something I really enjoy doing, is documenting things in different forms. So for example, with the Impressionists, their whole thing was their paintings are kind of messy and look unfinished because they're trying to document something in the moment that they saw it, because things are constantly changing. Like even in front of me right now, the water is moving from left to right, the dry leaves in the water are shifting, there's going to be new ripples every 2 seconds. The whole point is for me to be able to capture this in the form that it is now, in the form that I'm seeing it, because the camera is going to show you one perspective. Well, different cameras show you different perspectives. So I have like my film camera is one thing, my phone is another, this camera is another, my eyes are something totally different. The way I'm drawing it is also going to be a bit different than how it is. I painted something kind of similar in Central Park a couple weeks ago with the very similar like angle of lake with the reflection and big trees that reflect into the water. So actually that's kind of cool that this is very much a parallel to that piece, and I kind of practiced it already, because when you practice something you notice the themes over and over and you get better at them. And this time I have my gouache instead of just watercolors, so I can make it better. I'll show you the painting I made in Central Park to compare it. This is what I have going on so far for the piece in Mexico City. Finally, what do we have? We have this. I think in a lot of ways it turned out even better than I expected, but at the same time, like not, you know, what I hope. But I'm comparing myself to artists who like dedicate their entire life to this, whereas for me it's just for fun, and I know I'm good at art, it's just like I'm not at the professional level exactly. It's relaxing, it was fun, but it's 1:40. I'm super late for lunch. I guess I also had a late breakfast because nothing really opened until 10, and normally I want to eat at like 9 if I can. Now I should leave and find breakfast. I walked here, so I feel like maybe there's something nearby. I don't know, we'll see. But this is it. So okay, wait. Okay. There's a lot of ground happening. Ooh. I hope this audio is good. I wish I had this camera more longer. So this is the cable car. I don't know what that was. Oh, there was another firework in the daytime. But we took this, you can swipe your Metro card here. So it was 5 pesos for one way, the other way as well. And when we came to the pyramids yesterday, we like passed through this by bus, and then we saw like these cable cars, which is how we found out like, oh, you can go on this, even though it's like not necessarily a tourist thing, but then we can get like a closer view of these houses. And I liked how our tour guide was saying like, this is the real Mexico City, not like what you guys are staying in. It is really cool to see like how expensive everything is here. Thank you.